Look, it's just another day. I get that. There's 365 days in the year, and January 1st is just like any other day. So why do we make resolutions on this day? Well, I don't know. It marks the beginning of a new year. So if you're going to take stock, if you're going to decide to change something or some things, why not do it at the beginning of a calendar year? A lot of people do. Marilyn Monroe, back in the day, resolved to go to acting class and never, ever miss. John Mayer said his resolution was to be more thoughtful in considering news. Rihanna said, stop shopping and quit being late. Amy Schumer resolved to rally women to support each other. Michelle Obama resolved to remember that it's okay to tell people no. And Bill Murray resolved to make more resolutions. I'm going to start out by talking about New Year's resolutions, and I don't think they're all bad, by the way. In fact, I was reading some research recently that said people who kind of have a goal of something they want to do compared to those who actually make a commitment, make a resolution, those that make the resolution are like 10 times more likely to achieve it than those that just kind of have the goal in their head. Now, that doesn't mean resolutions are a great way to get things done, but you're 10 times more likely to do it if you at least make a resolution to do it than just having it in your head. So resolutions, if they're done right, can be good as opposed to just having an awareness. Awareness is like nothing. You don't get anything done. I was really curious about where this whole idea of resolution started. So I was doing some research on it a couple months ago, and it actually started like 4,000 years ago. The Babylonians were the ones that started this. Now, for them, New Year's was in March, not January. They had pagan gods, and this was a time that they set up to say, okay, we're going to resolve that the new year starts now for them in March, and they're going to pay off their debts and return anything they had borrowed from their neighbors. I don't guess they had lawnmowers back then, but they still borrowed stuff. And if they kept those resolutions, the idea was that the gods would smile on them during the year. And if they didn't pay off their debts and return things they had borrowed, then things would go badly for them. That wasn't good. So they wanted to keep those resolutions. Then, like 14 BC, Julius Caesar started playing with the calendar. And that's when the new year started to be in January, or Janus, as they referred to it then. And that was a two-faced God. And the idea was the one face looked back at what had happened in the previous year, and one looked forward. They started making resolutions about how they wanted to change things from the year before. And then in like 1740, John Wesley, who was, I guess, the father of Methodism, started it as a sort of a spiritual thing to fight all of the traditions of just getting drunk on New Year's Eve. So that's kind of where it began then. But you'd think we've had 4,000 years to practice this, that we would be a little better at it than we are, but we're not. If you look to see how many people keep the resolutions, it varies from like 8% keep them. Some say as many as 46% keep them. But either way, it's really poor. And if you're going to make them, I want you to keep them. So I'm going to talk about how to actually set a goal and make it. Have you made a New Year's resolution, and what was it? The 10 most common, you could probably make the list out. People want to eat healthy, get more organized, learn a new skill or a hobby, live life to the fullest. They want to save more and spend less. They want to quit smoking. They want to spend more time with friends and family. I'm not saying these are bad. I'm just saying what they are. They want to travel more. They want to improve their job performance. They want to exercise more, live more healthy. And here's the problem with those, if there is a problem with them. It's kind of hard to measure some of these things. You want to eat more healthy. I mean, something like saving more and spending less is actually measurable. You could actually measure that. But if you're going to set a goal, you want it to be measurable, right? But before we get into setting what your actual goals are, let me talk to you here. And I don't want you to tune out because you think, oh, we're just talking about New Year's resolutions. I don't care about that. I can watch Dr. Phil this afternoon, so I'm just going to tune out of this one and listen to music while I'm walking. No, no, no. Hang with me here because I'm going to talk to you about something that I really want you to listen to because this is for you. This is for you. I want to talk to you first about setting yourself up for success in 2023 before you do anything else. And I'm going to tell you a couple of things that can change your life this year. There's not anybody today you can listen to that's going to give you facts that I'm going to give you right now that can have a bigger impact on your life. Now, I know that sounds egotistical for me to say. It's not that I've invented this stuff. I just collected the information to give it to you so you can make some differences. And the biggest mistake in life is you think you have time, and you don't. Time is free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. And once it's lost, you can't get it back. Time is a really unique commodity. Think about it. You can't get it back. You can't own it, but you can spend it. And it's the one thing you can't create more of. You can make more money. You can gather more stuff. There's that old saying, the one with the most toys at the end wins. Now, you can't have more time. So I want to talk to you about your time. You may think you have time, but you don't. You don't have time to fix your relationships. You don't have time to bond with your children. You don't have time to do the things that you think you're going to get around to. You don't have time. So I want to talk to you about how to maximize the time that you have. And to do that, I've got to get you to be as efficient as you can possibly be. If this is the one time a year that we take stock, that we step back and say, am I making the most out of my life? Then let's use this time. This is it. You're going to have this one time, this 1 year, and you are the only you that will ever exist. My friend Sanjay Gupta, who's the medical expert for CNN, describes it pretty well. He says, you've got certain parts of your brain that deal with certain tasks. And whenever you switch from one task to another task, your brain has to disengage from the elements it's using to perform those tasks, switch over to the other parts of the brain that are engaged with a new task, and it has to adapt and engage, and that takes several minutes to do. And then when it finally gets up to speed, and so you start using that part of your brain and those parts of the brain that are engaged with maybe a numerical task versus a physical task, and it gets up to speed, it takes maybe 5 minutes to get to peak efficiency there. Now they come and say, well, here's a third thing you need to do. So about the time you're getting up to speed there, you pull off of that, and now you're answering an email over here, which is maybe it's an HR issue. So now you got to switch over to something else. So now that part of the brain's got to get up to speed, and it takes time. Now you got to go back to task one. So the brain has to figure out, all right, well, where do we leave off over here? And you got to re-engage, and the brain's got to get back up to speed there. It's like a jet engine. It's got to spool up. It takes time. And so every time you switch from one thing to another, the brain doesn't just jump in at full speed. It has to read the situation, engage, start ramping up. We just don't do that instantaneously. It takes time, and it's also fatiguing. It shouldn't be called multitasking. It should be called multitaxing because it taxes your brain and you get fatigued. So you go to your desk and you sit down and you deal with 6 or 7 things before you get to what you went back there to do. your number one priority, by the time you get to your number one priority, you're fatigued. So you don't bring your best self to what you went back there to do to begin with. When somebody comes and says, hey, have you got a couple of minutes? You know what your answer should be? Actually, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of something. Where can I call you when I finish this? Set your pattern up, set your environment up where it supports you rather than tempts you. You set your environment up for success. You put notes around, you put things around like this dumbbell. So you have it where it's easy and it pulls for success rather than temptation. If you want to quit smoking, then rid yourself of everything in your environment that makes it easy to smoke. Obviously, get rid of all of your cigarettes, get rid of all of your ashtrays. If you get them from a vending machine, go down a different hallway at work. Whatever you have to do, use your environment to support what you're doing. Now, so far, we haven't talked about any goals. I'm just talking about you. I'm talking about you deciding, what can I do to be the most effective person that I can possibly be? And it has to do, so far, with your attitude. We've talked about how you can be smarter, how you can be more efficient, how you can program yourself for success. And I've talked to you about the reality of time. I don't want you 6 months from now saying, well, if I had just. Look, if. Those are the middle two letters of the word life. Don't spend your life focused on if. You want to do. Don't focus on if. And you may say, look, I hear you, Dr. Phil. It's very motivational. I get it, but that's just not me. We were all somebody else yesterday. We are evolving people. We were all somebody else yesterday. The past is just that. It's the past. That's why the rearview mirror is small and the windshield on your car is big. The past is the past. Now, I was raised up in a Baptist church and the Bible Belt, and we were taught you give people the benefit of the doubt. That's insane. Certainly in this day and time with a transient society where we don't really know people. When I grew up, we weren't a very transient society. You knew everybody in the neighborhood. If anybody that wasn't supposed to be there, they stuck out like a sore thumb because we weren't very transient. We went to school 2 blocks away. Nobody moved. Everybody was there. So if like some stranger, like stranger danger showed up, you knew this guy didn't belong here. Even then, it didn't make sense. Give people benefit of the doubt. Why would you do that? And you're thinking, well, Dr. Phil, that's awful harsh. No, it's not. You shouldn't judge them as bad either. I'm not saying they're guilty till proven innocent. I'm saying what you should do is gather information, gather data until you have enough to make an informed decision. You don't give somebody the benefit of the doubt. You don't let them in your life. You don't loan them money. You don't do all of these things because it's a nice thing to do. Are you kidding me? You need to gather enough data until you can make an informed decision. See them in enough different situations and circumstances. Try a little something and see how it works. And if they show themselves to be trustworthy at that level, then go to the next level. I play tennis a lot, and I have some friends that are tennis friends, and I trust them as tennis friends 100%. And what does that mean? It means if I make a date to play tennis with them, I expect them and trust that they will show up 100% of the time. They will not stand me up. They will not be an hour late. When they get there, they won't be a jerk and argue over line calls and pout if they're losing or slam balls around or whatever. They'll be pleasant and we'll laugh and compete and have a good time. I trust that that's what will happen. But that doesn't mean I take them home. It doesn't mean I go into business with them. It doesn't mean I confide in them family secrets. Are you reaching for that next level? Are you modeling for your children? You need to find something in this life that you're passionate about. If your children don't have passion, you need to help them find something that they're passionate about. And to do that, you need to put down those burdens that you're carrying. You need to unburden yourself. You need to give yourself permission to give yourself a break. You've carried these burdens long enough. Give yourself permission to forgive yourself and put those burdens down. I'm quoting people today for some reason, but Einstein said it really well. He said, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. That's why I started this by saying I want you to change your thinking. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. You got to think differently. You got to change the way you approach this world. And that's what I'm asking you to do. And I'm asking you to think about this based on how to change what you want versus being a slave to an agenda. Don't be in reactive mode. What I want you to do is focus on what you want. Don't get up and react to the world where you get up and do Monday what you did last Monday just because it's what you did last Monday. Is it what you want to do? And if it's not what you want to do, then start a process of change to get more of what you want to do. Now, I understand if you're working as an accountant and you don't like that, you can't just quit tomorrow and start flying freight out of Africa or something. I get that. I'm not trying to get you to be some kind of exotic dreamer, but I told you this is not a dress rehearsal. The middle word in life is if. L-I-F-E. If. You don't want to be on your deathbed saying, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? You want to answer that question. So I want to stimulate your thinking here with a few questions. And you may think these are kind of silly, but bear with me. If you had $100 million tomorrow morning, what would you do different? If you woke up tomorrow and you had $100 million, what would you do different? If you woke up tomorrow and you were king or queen of the forest, you were just in charge, what would be your top 3 priorities? If you could erase one thing that happened last year, what would it be? Just one thing. If you could erase one thing that happened in your personal life, I'm not talking about the world. If you could erase one thing in your life, what would it be? If you could ensure that one thing was going to happen, what would that be? So those are 4 questions I want you to think about. If you had $100 million, what would you do instead? If you were king or queen of the forest, what would be your top 3 priorities? If you could erase one thing in your life, what would it be? If you could ensure one thing was going to happen, what would it be? That will get you started on the path.